Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I'm your host, Stacey Andon. Oh, I cannot wait to bring this special series. We are going to do 4 parts with my co-host and amazing bestie, Kelly Backert. We are going to be talking about health and wellness in the new year. As we know, we all get inundated, right? It's January. We're getting inundated with all the things, and we want to break it down to really share information and also talk to you about what you can do and how you can do it so it actually feels good and you get the results you want. So I am going to be bringing on Kelly in a second. If you do not know her, she is the owner of Core Boot Camps and Core Bar and Yoga. She is a personal trainer. She's won best personal trainer in Harford County. Of course she has, because she's amazing. And she's also an incredible health and I guess health and wellness coach would be how I would say that. And she is devoted to helping people change and be in relationship with food, diet, and exercise in a whole different way that doesn't feel like a painful struggle like we've all learned as we've been in this world. So welcome today, Kelly Backert. Hello, my beautiful friend. So today's episode is all about all these diet trends, right? That we're getting inundated on our social media feeds. People are talking about, people are saying they're not actually diets. So I want to dive in with you as our expert to help us walk through what's going on, what's coming at us right now.
Oh god, some of the same old stuff. We still got Weight Watchers out there, don't we?
Oh yeah, Weight
We were all
Watchers.
we
Doesn't
were
want
either
to
put on that as a child or somewhere in the '90s, most of us went on that.
totally.
I can't believe it's still around. Actually, I kinda can, but anyway, I think, there's a lot there's different things coming in, and then we have the same old, same old. So,
Okay.
I kind of like I think that we'll talk about the ones that are kind of I lump them together, which are kind of like the shake diets, which,
Mm,
so there's Arbonne, Herbalife, Optavia, Isogenics, and there's probably a couple of more that I'm not saying right, but what these diets are is just like completely cutting your calories, having 2 shakes a day, and then like a green meal. Okay. So they're promoting just basically being very restrictive.
yeah,
Um, of course, they promote it as something healthy, and people do obviously lose weight on this because you're completely cutting out your calories and you're basically
absolutely.
doing
How
nothing.
could you not?
However, I mean, everybody gains it back.
Yeah.
That's not a lifestyle change. You cannot sustain that over time. Even if you sustained it for a year and you
Mhm.
lost 100 pounds, reach back out to me in about another year and
Yeah.
let's see where you're at because it's just not sustainable.
Mhm.
It's not a lifestyle change. It's just a very restrictive. Those are just very restrictive diets.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like if you wanna deprive yourself, here's
And
the
they're very
category.
hard to do, and then what happens if we fail at them is it's
Mm,
all the guilt and the shame and all the stuff that goes along with it. So
yeah.
those are some of the other ones. Then we have, like, the Weight Watchers and the Noom diet. Noom diet's pretty new.
Mhm.
It's,
Mhm.
Noom and Weight Watchers, I lump them together because they wanna talk to you about their push they push wellness, that word wellness a lot, and
Mhm.
they also push, um like the psychological perspective. Like Weight Watchers has meetings, and then the Noom tries to talk about like we do it differently because we do it from a psychological perspective. All of that's bullshit. All of that's smokes and mirrors. It's
Mhm.
again just another way of restricting your diet.
Yeah,
And now Weight Watchers has jumped on the shots. So that's what we'll go
yes.
into now. So the shots,
Let's talk about that
the
because it's
main
a big thing
one
right
is
now.
yeah, oh, it's huge. The main one is Ozempic, but there's that's just the name of one. There's
Mhm.
several other generic ones, and the primary ingredient in it is, semaglutide. So
Okay.
you'll hear semaglutide. You should come get a semaglutide shot. So,
Mm.
Weight Watchers does now offer that. I think a bunch of these other diets will jump on board with that, but a lot of like med spas and uh, other kind of wellness centers, what they call themselves, are jumping on board with these shots. They're not hard to get.
It
they're not
reminds me of
regular.
Fen. Remember, I mean, now I'm dating
Yeah.
myself. When Fen was all the craze and everybody was on it and people it was like candy, right? Like people just handing it
Mhm,
out.
mhm,
And lo and behold, yeah, people were getting results, but then there was terrific, horrific, side effects obviously got taken off the market. But it just is so interesting to me because I think that, and again, January shows up and we're trying to get a quick fix, right? Of how
mhm,
can we, be a certain way. And it's always comes back to here's a pill, here's a this, here's the
mhm,
restriction. And in what I know you and I were prepping for this over the last couple of days, one of the things it's like, none of these things are different than what last year and the year before. Now, yes, there are maybe different, maybe the methodology or whatever it is that they're doing, but the messaging is always the same. You need to deprive yourself, you need to restrict, you need to do it this way because this is the only way you're going to get results. And we all kind of, I don't know, I mean, I've been in this wave, not so much anymore, but in years past, get kind of caught up in this wave of, oh my gosh, I need to be doing something. And so I need to be, signing up for one of these new things.
mhm. Semaglutide, it has horrific side effects.
Mhm.
Like, it's, the people that I know that are on it, I mean, it's nauseous, but I mean, they're starting to talk about that it's like thyroid tumors, like
Wow.
kidney injuries, you have gallbladder problems, so this is a major concern. Like,
Oh,
it's out there, it's talking about it, like hair loss, hives, um, cold, like you feel cold all the time, discoloration of your skin. Like, I think I said hair, yeah, hair loss. I mean, there's just so
yeah.
many things. So there's all these side effects. And the other thing that I always want to mention is when you're on something like that, the second that you go off of it, you gain the weight back. Because a lot of people will say to me, well, I'm just using this as a jump start. A
Mhm.
lot of people, this is a big thing for my clients
Mhm.
with all the diets. I'm just using it as a jump start. And then I'm going to make the healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
changes. Like, how about we don't? And how about we just do the healthy lifestyle changes? If you're going to
Yes.
do that anyway, you say you're going to. Well, I just need a jump start. Well, the hard thing about these shots is the second that you go off of them, you gain. And I mean, it's not just me saying this. This is what doctors are saying. This is what the
Yeah.
studies are showing. They're showing this, they're saying this. It's right
Mhm.
out in the open. But and
But
I
we get so attached to
yeah.
a quick fix. And it's so interesting, like, this idea, because I was like that for years. It was like, "Oh, I just wanna lose the first 10 pounds, and then I'm going to," right? It's a
Mhm,
lie, at least I cannot speak for anybody else, it's a lie I told myself, because it's harder to actually break it down, health and wellness for myself, and make changes that are going to work for me. Like, that takes more time and effort than just saying, "Oh, here, right, here's something to do," even the shake, anything that's prescriptive,
yep,
that it's like I don't have to actually, right, I don't have to do the actual work to take care of myself. I'm putting it in the hands of, what we call experts. And the billion-dollar diet industry has marketed themselves as experts. And what I know you and I are always asking, like, but let's dig a little bit deeper into the research, let's dig a little bit deeper into
mhm.
how these things really affect our bodies, and not just be like, oh, yes, because somebody said so and everybody I know is doing it, that means it's a good thing to do.
Well, this industry isn't looking out for you.
No.
It's not looking it's so, I mean, just to give you one example with Weight Watchers, and, I remember posting about this, it was years ago. I mean, I wanna say now, probably 5 years ago, but the, CEO of Weight Watchers at the time came out on a hot mic. He was caught on a hot mic saying, because that's when they put out their children's program for children, and they
Mm,
were, disguising it that they were just teaching them about fruits and vegetables, but really it was about counting points and counting calories at a very young age. I mean, we're talking 6, 7 years old.
wow.
And but he was caught on a hot mic saying, "Let's get them younger," because then they keep coming back. Because because most of these diets, they're counting on you being a repeat customer. You're
Absolutely.
gonna try it again in the new year. You're gonna try it again. You're gonna go on repeat. Weight Watchers, if the people just originally went off it and then they used that program and had a lifestyle change, Weight Watchers would be non-existent, and that thing's been around since the early 80s. So
Agreed.
they're counting on you being a repeat customer, your children being a repeat customer. This is what they're doing, and they were caught saying it. So
Yeah.
so they're not looking out for you. They don't have your best interest. They're trying to get you hooked on, and it like you said, it's a multi-billion dollar industry, but also a lot of these things are like even the shake diets
Mm,
or the Noom or the shots especially, but they're extremely expensive. Like this is
mhm.
not cheap. It's most of it's not covered by insurance. So you're paying a lot of money and
Mhm.
they're making a lot of money off of you. So
Yeah.
and so they're again, their best interest is to keep you coming back and to keep you in this cycle of dieting and restricting and all that stuff. It's you've got to look behind the scenes a little bit. It's like Wizard of Oz. You got to look behind who's the wizard behind the screen, you
Yeah,
know?
and follow the money,
Yeah.
right? Follow the money to see where it's coming from,
Mhm,
because to me, you really need to do your own due diligence about all this stuff, because this anxiety that we feel every January, I realize I'm like, no, this is created, right? This is marketed to us here. You should be anxious about this. There's something. Right, December, I'm not thinking about, right? We're not thinking about that so
mhm,
much. We're enjoying the holidays, we're doing whatever. And then all of a sudden, January turns around, and then you feel, I don't know about you, but I felt this like wave of anxiety
mhm,
over the last couple of weeks just coming out. It's like, okay, you got to get to it, and whatever it is.
mhm,
And it's like, does this even belong to us? No, this is the industry and this
mhm,
whole, like
mhm.
you said, they want to get you on the wheel and keep you on the wheel. I
Yeah.
can personally say that I lost 50 pounds. Well, no, maybe my first go around with Weight Watchers was 90 pounds. Then my second go around was 50 pounds. And then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And interestingly enough, before that, it was Jenny Craig, right? And I'm
Yeah.
surprised I just saw a Jenny Craig commercial. Jenny
Oh,
Craig's
yeah, they're
still
still there. So is
they're still
Nutrisystem.
yeah, they're still trying, again, to deliver something. They don't care, actually, about people having the results and then creating that life and moving forward. They're banking, like you said, on this just like rinse, lather, and repeat for all of
There's
us.
one more trend that's being pushed, and you guys and everybody that's listening is gonna hear it a lot more. It's
Okay,
gonna
tell
be
us.
big. It's gonna go big. It's, this idea of clean eating. Now we
Mm,
have all those packaged, things that get sent to your house. Gosh,
mhm,
Blue Ribbon is one. Like, so there is actually a business that just opened up in, Hartford County, but they're all over the place where they promote clean eating, and there's these pre-packaged meals. Again, it's all wrapped in plastic, which
mm,
I think is absolutely disgusting, but,
yep,
like, it's all it's extremely expensive. It's
mm,
extremely expensive. You don't have to do any they're doing it because, "Oh, well, it's very convenient, and if you're gonna go to McDonald's, don't go to McDonald's, just come over here." But I don't know again, if you look at the prepackaged meals, if you look at a lean cuisine, if you look at a healthy choice meal, the list if the list of ingredients is this long, we're in
mhm.
trouble. Like, we're in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
something's gone wrong. So it's, this idea of anybody, you and I could go out right now, package up a meal, put a bunch of stuff in it to make it taste good,
Mm,
change it to these interesting words so that we're not really saying sugar, so we're not really saying sodium, so we're not really saying all of these things, these chemicals
mhm.
we're putting in it. And then you and I could say, we're starting a clean eating company. That's how easy it is. Nothing is this industry, especially if you go into like a GNC with supplements and stuff, it is not regulated by the
Yeah.
FDA. So we have to you have to, and not that the FDA is its own set of problems right now,
Right.
but it's but it's but it's not regulated by anybody. It's just a free for all out there. So
Yeah.
we're putting things and digesting things into our bodies, and it's like we don't know. You don't know. And honestly, um again, I'm just gonna say this really quickly. Because a lot of people will push back and they'll be like, well, my doctor has told me to go on to use these shots, or my doctor has
Mhm,
recommended to me that I try this diet.
mhm.
Um, I don't believe, and it's just my personal belief that sometimes primary care doctors have a lot of nutrition background.
Mhm.
So you're gonna need to ask them how much nutrition background they have and ask them questions because you I think you'd be better off going to somebody that's more of an expert in that area than just like a
Mhm.
primary care doctor who's just, kind of just throwing out things and may not have the best education with that. So
That's a really
I'd
good
be
point.
careful. I'd be careful with that.
Yeah. So all this anxiety, all this stuff coming at us, all of, this, and again, if diets worked, we'd we'd all I would have lost 50 pounds however many years ago and been done.
Yep.
And here's the other thing, there's so much time that we are spending. Think about it, even if you just researched all this stuff, the amount of time that we're spending to be focused on 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever it is. And it almost feels to me like it's like juicing or like all of these things that have kind of popped up. It's like, where can people who have discretionary money spend it, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody wants a piece
Yeah.
of whatever this is. And so how can we charge $20 for a shake or
Yep.
$20 for a cup of coffee because it has whatever this stuff is in the supplements. I don't know. I'd have to do some more research, but I'm pretty sure the supplement business is in the $1 billion as well
Oh,
too.
100%.
And again, there are definitely things that are wonderful that we can tap into. But generally speaking, this idea of I had a coworker years ago and he was very frugal and he's like, everything about the world in which we are surrounded in is trying to separate us from our money. Everything is trying
Mhm.
to separate us from our money. So
Yeah.
it's like when you really start thinking about your health and wellness, you really need to maybe think about it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think the first part of this series, we're just starting out by discussing these diets, and I think there even people maybe that are listening to this, there's a lot of pushback because I think, I think people want something, and they want somebody to tell them exactly what to do. They wanna take the thought out of it, they wanna make and the hard thing is that, and we'll go into this, over the course of the series that we're working on, but you need to be you have to be guided by your own intuition. You have to listen to what's inside of you because if you're on repeat with some of this stuff, if every January 1st you're coming back to the same thing, then
Mhm.
it's not right. Like you keep we're on this, it's not working. You're like, well, and this is the big one, and I'm just gonna say it really quick because a lot of people say it. I'm going back on Weight Watchers because it works for me. Or I'm
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I hear this all the time. I hear this all the time. And I'm like, if it worked for you, then why are you going back on it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. I lost 18 pounds with it. And I'm like, again,
Mhm.
it didn't work
Yeah.
because you're back here again trying to redo this. Like you're 25 pounds
Yes.
heavier than you were before. And now you're coming back. Well, this time it's going to be different because last time I was no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to be different. It's not going
And
to be different.
and I think this is a really good point, and it's perfect for this first part of the series, is this idea if it didn't work, we've been told then it's your fault because you weren't
Yes.
committed enough and
Yep.
you did something wrong. So that's
Yeah.
why you have to try it again because you were bad, wrong.
In our next series, we're gonna do a couple of things. We're gonna do what does a real lifestyle change look like? What are some tools that you and I can offer the audience in terms of well, what can if because right now they're at a loss, right? They're listening and they're like, well, if I can't do any of these diets out here, what can I do? Because I do want to lose weight or I do want to be healthier or whatever it is. So I think that you and I know we both have a lot of knowledge on there is a different way, there's a great way,
Yeah.
um, and it's a lifestyle change instead of just something that's short term.
Trust your own knowing that there is, and we're going to go into all the detail of it. This seduction that pulls us in, if you just take a pause and allow yourself again, to notice everything around you and have more information, and to believe we're offering this belief that, again, even with all of this very fancy, very expensive marketing, again, look at what's behind the curtain. I love that because it's a Wizard of Oz reference. So,
Yeah.
so if you are having questions, you want to ask us something about this particular topic or something else that's on your mind about health and wellness and everything that we're going to be discussing, you can send it to Kelly or I. Will put all of that in the show notes so that you have an easy way to reach out to us anonymously. We will hold all of that in confidence, but we will speak to it. And I know I've said this to myself so many times over the years. If I'm not going to do a diet, what am I going to do? And then when I'm trying whatever I'm trying and it's not working and get frustrated, like there's a lot of us out there that really don't want to go down that diet route. And if you don't know what we're talking about, listen to episode 1 where we go through all the details of that. If you don't want to choose that, where do you get started? What do you do?
I think we're being kind of seduced. It's a mass marketing campaign out there against us a little bit. So it is very difficult to not want to like sink our teeth into a new restrictive diet or something like that, or go one of those routes. But I think when it comes to lifestyle change, it's just figuring out, like, listening to your own intuition, your own guidance system. And sometimes, I'm just going to be honest with you, sometimes it might say to you, hey, I need to eat, you know, a little bit less carbs, or hey, I need to eat a little bit more protein, or hey, I need to. That's not the same thing as what the restrictive diets are. When you're guided by your own intuition, it'll lead you, if you can, can get still enough to listen and be a little bit more mindful. It will lead you to the type of exercise that works well for your body. It'll lead you to the type of diet that works well for your body. But you're going to have to, I think, slow down. And I always like to say this, I like to look at, because we're always evolving and changing, our bodies are, over time. Um, and also the science around things is always evolving and changing, and our food supply is always evolving and changing. I think it's important to kind of look at our diet as like a scientific experiment. Like, let's just try some things and let's see if it works. And then if that doesn't work, then we'll try something else. It's not a straight road. It's not going to be like, okay, I do Weight Watchers. I'm on Weight Watchers for the rest of my life. I do 2 shakes a day and 1 green meal, and I'm on that diet every day for the rest of my life until I fall off of it and I eat 20 Oreos, right? Like, it's not like that.
Right.
It's a roller coaster ride, because again, like, what maybe I did last year isn't going to work for me this year because my hormones are different, or my body is different, or I'm just different, or my taste buds are different. Like, what you did as a child, what you did as a teenager, it could be different. It can be evolving. So if we can just take like a breath and kind of just listen to ourselves instinctively, and like ask ourselves, like, when you're sitting there, and again, I think we're in like a heightened state of anxiety most of the time, and we're kind of looking at our phones and we're on our computers and we're running around. It's like a state of anxiety. But if you can come back to a little bit more stillness, and you can come back into your own intuition, it will guide you. Why can't you ask yourself, what do I feel like eating today? Like, what do I feel like? Maybe I can ask myself certain questions that will lead me to more of a lifestyle change. Like, does when I drink that cup of coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, does that give me energy, or does that cut my energy? Does it give me energy for an hour and then I have to take a nap? Like, what is, like, what I if you can slow down, and if you really want to change the way you are, and it honestly, people are like, "Well, that takes a long time." It really doesn't. It and honestly, what takes a long time is keep repeating these same cycles of dieting and gaining weight and losing weight and coming back and going all around. It's confusing, but what if we just listen to our own,
Yeah.
one of the tools would be listening to your own inner guidance system.
I think that if you are on this planet, well, maybe not, I don't mean everybody, but I definitely think in this culture that we're like, again, this $1 billion industry that's constantly at our, in our social media feeds and everywhere around us, it's hard not to have some level of disordered eating, right? There's some some relationship with food, some relationship with exercise that was not necessarily intuitively created. Like we didn't get, at least I did not get raised. I got raised on a diet, did not get raised to trust when I'm hungry, when oh, I don't want that. No, you're going to eat that because your aunt made that and you're going to eat it because it would be rude otherwise, right? Like
Mhm.
those kinds of things that, to your point, when you start to pause and ask yourself, what do I actually want? Do I want to eat this? Do I not want to eat that? And to your point, or at least to my experience, if you've been living in these deprivation cycles over and over and over again, you don't always know, right? At least for me, it took a while to
Mhm.
understand what I really wanted because
Mhm.
could I trust that? And you want all the things that you told yourself you weren't allowed to have. That's another part of it. At least for me, it was like, well, if I can have whatever I want, then I do want, and Janine Roth talks about this in some of her weight related books. You want 3 slices of cake or whatever at the beginning because a part of you believes like, well, I'm never going to get a slice of cake again if I start to make these lifestyle changes, which I want you to speak to because I know it's not true, but it's something that we're almost like
Mhm.
detoxing from this
Mhm.
cycle that we're in. What does that look like?
Well, here's the thing. I think people will say to me all the time, well, if I'm just, first of all, it's learning to trust yourself, which you and I have done episodes before, right? We got to learn
Mhm.
to trust ourselves. There's a disconnect there. Has
Yeah.
nothing to do with food. It honestly has to do with just trusting our own selves when it comes to making any kind of decision. So there's a trust issue there. But besides that, there's this idea of like when someone says, well, if I'm allowed to eat whatever I want, you don't understand, Kelly. I'm going to eat like 3 large pizzas. I'm going to eat. And I always say, trust me, you're not going to, because you're going to make yourself ravagely like sick, like so
Yes.
sick. Think about like if you did do that. Like, okay, I'm going to eat 3 large pizzas, then I'm going to eat 6 ice cream. Like you're going to make yourself sick. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. You won't. You won't. You might eat like make poor choices or something. And when I say poor choices, things when we're talking about good and bad foods, when I say poor choices, I'm talking about they say like the industry told me that carbs are bad this week.
Right.
I'm talking about what makes me sick. What gives me less energy. Now, what your husband does, what your best friend does, what your spouse does, what your partner does, what your best friend does, what your friend at the gym does is going to be completely different than what you do. These cookie cutter diets don't work because our bodies are uniquely us, just like everything else on the planet. I talk
Mhm.
differently. I am differently. I need to exercise differently. I have my own way of doing everything. I have my own fingerprints. I have my own way of being. So the food is going to be no different. What my diet looks like is going to be completely different than probably most of those people I just said. So I think, but when we come back to this idea of letting go of this idea of like it for me, when you have that mindset of like, oh my gosh, I'm let loose and I don't know what to eat and what to do, and like I'm just gonna sit down and eat all of this, like you said, like 5 slices of pizza, and I'm just gonna okay. No, you're not. And here's the reason why. Because what we're doing as we change our lifestyle is looking at it as a scientific experiment, and we're looking at it in terms of like, does that give me energy or take away my energy? Am I living at my best self when I eat that or not? We're just going to change our mindset around it and the way that we're thinking. We're going to work on trusting ourselves, which is a completely like kind of separate thing. And
Right.
but we are doing that now. We're working on it by looking at it a little bit differently. So I don't like the idea. I hate when people say, oh, you have to look at it as fuel. I want to look at food as fuel. No,
Yeah.
you know what? Stop. Food is emotional. Okay. What do we do when there's a wedding? We sit around a table and eat. What do we do when there's a funeral? We sit around and eat. What do we do
Mhm.
at Christmas? What do we do at Thanksgiving? What do we do with our friends? Food is emotional. I don't like it when people say they're emotional eaters. We're all emotional eaters. We eat when we're
Yes.
happy. We eat when we're sad. It's an emotional thing, and that's okay. That's okay. Food. Oh, I just see food as fuel. Great, but the rest of us, we do it a little bit for enjoyment. You know what? That piece of chocolate,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Like I'm gonna have some fun here. Like I have like people used to say to me all the time. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like, you describe food as fun." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, it's fun. Like, it's fun."
Mhm.
It can be a lot of fun to go get an ice cream cone with your friend.
Yeah.
It can be fun. Like but now there's a difference between going out and getting an ice cream cone and enjoying it with my friend and sitting down on the couch and eating 6 ice cream sundaes. There's
Yes.
a difference because, then then there's other things going on. I'm not eating 6 ice cream sundaes because I'm hungry, right? There's
Right.
other things going on, and those things will need to be addressed as well. But if you can just step back, the first step that you're doing is, I think that just letting go of some of these old ideas, like when that thought comes that you just mentioned, that thought that
Mhm.
is like, you're not trusting yourself, you're gonna go eat all of these things. But you
Mhm.
can always just ask yourself, "Okay, I but when I eat this, I
Mhm.
feel like this, and I wanna feel like this. I want to feel good. I wanna walk around as the best version of myself so that I can show up for the people in my life and show up for myself, show up for my job, show up for my family, show up for my friends. I can't do that if I'm sitting on the couch eating 6 ice cream sundaes." So
Yeah.
it's about figuring out what foods give me energy and what foods don't, and that can be ever evolving and changing.
And if you take a detour, tell me what you think about this. But if you take a detour, because this is what I did, I started down years ago. A lot of people know I did kind of lose over 100, like, and I know I spoke to like losing certain amounts on Weight Watchers and
Mhm.
stuff in the first episode, but then I lost over 100 pounds because I had a serious health diagnosis and I did want to get healthy. However, I did it very traditionally, not on any kind of particular plan, but deprivation. And so when you start to say to yourself, what do I really want? I kind of had to take a detour into addressing some of what was coming up for me
Mhm.
because I could eat, I don't know, 6 cupcakes and then go into a shame spiral, right? Then it just is like, well, this isn't working. And then you go into this place where I know you and I we were asking this question of like, when you do something like that, right? Well, let's say you do eat all the Oreos in the house or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like instead of it just derailing our entire you that's what me in the past. I would be like, "All right, I give up." Right? I give up. This isn't working. Instead of just coming back to, okay, what can I do now to really take care of myself without judgment about what I just did? And what's really going on for me? Because I think also too, you're right. We are so busy and so going that at least to me, I see with a lot of my clients, if you're just doing things so fast and you do start to slow down, things are going to bubble up. Things are going to come up to the surface. And it's an opportunity then, again, as part of this, to I always say, lean into that rather than try to fix it with something else. Because I know also, too, I always thought, well, if I lost all this weight and I looked a certain way, my life would be better. I would be happier, right? This is this other kind of piece I think that a lot of us believe like somehow this is going to create this result. And what you and I both know is that that's not necessarily, actually it's usually never true.
Never.
And that this lifestyle change, it isn't I'm going to do this for 3 months to lose 10 pounds. This is I want a better relationship with myself and I want to be in a state of well-being that doesn't necessarily equate to whatever it is the standards are that we've been taught to strive for. And I think there's a lot there that again, we don't have to uncover it all and you don't have to lean into all of it at once, but it's probably going to poke up some things for people
Oh,
if they start to
100%.
do
It's
that.
going to be it's I mean, this is major work, but you're gonna end up doing the work anyway,
It's
because 'cause you're
true.
gonna be forced to because these short-term diets don't work.
Yeah.
So it's like or you're going to be extremely unhealthy and you're gonna end up paying major medical bills and you're gonna be in the hospital. Like,
Yeah.
you at some point, the work has to come in.
That's a
So if
really
we
good
can do
point.
the inner work so, like, for example, like, when you were eating the 6 ice cream sundaes, or I mean, the 6 cupcakes,
Yep.
I think with your example with that is afterwards, you can get curious. You like that word. You can get curious, and you can ask yourself, maybe I didn't want those 6 ice cream sundaes, maybe I just needed a hug from my husband.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just needed, I'm in this fight with my daughter, and it's just really complicated to me, and I kinda like, most
Yes,
of the time because it's
absolutely.
not about the food. It's not
Nope.
about the cupcake. You don't like cupcakes more than me. You don't wanna make it
That is
you know what
true.
I mean? That's what I'm saying. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's never about the food.
No,
People
it's not.
wanna make it about the food. Kelly, I'm an emotional eater. I have an addiction to sugar.
Yeah,
I have an addiction to this. No, 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 no. You use food and a response to other things.
yeah,
And you know what? Totally normal. Totally normal. Most people do. We just talked about this with the emotional,
yeah,
it's okay. It's okay.
yeah,
You're a human being on a planet. And maybe you kind of sort of do that for the rest of your life. And I want to tell you something cool.
yeah.
But there is a different way, there's a better way, and
Mhm.
yeah, you're right, some stuff is gonna come up, if you're taking away, I don't wanna say your drug of choice, but if you're taking away something that you've
Yep,
used instead of feeling your feelings or your
yes.
emotions, of course things are gonna come up. Of course they can, and you know what? That's why you have a good coach, a
Mhm.
good therapist, you have somebody that you trust and who's very knowledgeable in this area, by the way, okay? And you feel safe with and you feel connected with and you feel like they're a safe place for you to do this, and you start to maybe, discuss these type of things with them. You know what I mean? You and I are both in this field. We can help people. That's what we're here to
Absolutely,
do. Hire us to help you.
absolutely.
We can lead you. We can guide you.
Mm,
And then because there is another way and you can and it's and on the other side of that, it's not like it doesn't ever go away or the thoughts don't come. It's
mhm.
just that you're different with it now. You're different with your relationship with food now. And it does and can get better. And
Yes.
and and you will feel more free. And it's just it's a I if you don't if somebody would have told me this when I was in the heat of my eating disorder many, many years ago, I would have told them to F off.
I don't know, but
But
yes,
people listening are
I
probably saying,
yes.
"Yeah,
But
they
and I think that to your point, there's something very sexy. I know when I've lost a tremendous amount of weight, you get a lot of attention, right? You get a lot of attention. It's very sexy. It's very like the before and after, right? This is why so many people use all these before and afters. And what we're saying, this other approach, it's not as sexy and glamorous, right? It's a lifelong commitment to just being in relationship with yourself and being so connected and so curious and so loving that again this becomes an extension of that relationship rather than what you said. It's not about the when it's not about the food, it's not about the diet, and there's something else going on. The what you call it, I can't think of the word right now. It's also true when you are really in that different approach, then it is all super connected in such a beautiful way. It doesn't
And the
mean you have to
funny
be
thing is
perfect.
that both you and I are super sexy and great. Like,
There
on
you
both
go.
ends, inside and out. You
Yes,
can have both. I'm
yes,
not saying to you, accept that you're 350 pounds and that you're unhealthy and you have all the that's not what we're doing here.
no,
It's not what we're doing here. We're just guiding you to show you that there is a different way. You can lose weight in a healthy way. You can be a healthy person. We're just showing you a different route there.
yeah.
It's more of an intuitive and it's less restrictive and it's a more of inner work to present yourself in that outer way. So that's what we're doing. We're just guides in that way, and we're doing it for ourselves as well. So we're walking that path alongside them.
And it's fun, like you said. There's fun and pleasure. It's not restrictive. And if constriction worked, we'd all be whatever size
Right.
zero, I guess. And so it's like, do you want to have more fun in your life? Do you want to do it in a way again that you don't feel so all that shame and all that guilt? It's like I want to drop all of that and let that off on the street corner and never pick it back up again. There is this other space, but it just again, I guess my point was it wasn't so glamorous out there in the masses why it doesn't get as much attention. But yes,
Oh,
there's
100%.
definitely sex appeal. And of course, I think we all really want to feel good in our own skin, to feel beautiful and allow whatever that looks like, right? kind of buck the system of what we've
Mhm.
been told it's supposed to be. So I love this. And this is a great, I think this is a great place for us to wrap up. This is series 2 of our series. If you have questions about anything we talked about today or in any of the episodes, please send Kelly or I a message because we are going to be answering all the questions around all the topics. We are diving right into episode 3 of our series on how to really create better health and wellness for ourselves this year without getting kind of stuck on the diet train that we've all been on in the past. So, today's episode, we are going to dive into all the tools you need.
We'll just focus on giving the audience a few tools that have worked for maybe you and I, and maybe they'll be a little bit different, but a little bit the same in terms of what might help them to do those lifestyle changes because it is kind of challenging in the beginning. I think we offered them a couple of things in the part 2 where I think it's important to have support. I think it's really important to be diligent about who you surround yourself with. And I think when you're going on like this journey of a lifestyle change, it's not just about the food, it's about who you surround yourself with. What are you following on social media? So it's not just the food you're digesting, but what are you really digesting? Like, who are you around? Like, you know what I mean? I think
That's a
that's
good
one of the
point.
things that I think helped me when I was doing my lifestyle change is it was one of the first things I did was kind of just my environment.
Mhm.
Like
Well,
changing that environment a little bit to make it a more, supportive environment for me to make those
yes.
lifestyle changes. And, because the lifestyle change, I mean, a lot of it has to do with, your like sometimes like your job, your commute, it might have something to do with how much sleep you're getting. And well, it does have something to do with that, but like all those things. And so when you're kind of like looking at it, you want to be, I always say like one of the first tools that I start out with is just kind of be diligent about like what you're digesting, like who's around you, who. And when you're doing a lifestyle change, I don't think you have to like share it with everybody. You can
No.
just share it to the people that you feel comfortable with. You don't have to like walk around and be like, "Well, I'm making this lifestyle change and I'm
Yeah.
changing what I'm doing." Like maybe you could just tell the people that you know are really supportive of that, and then maybe just kind of like, you don't have to like it doesn't have to be posted on social media, so to speak. You know what I mean? I think it's
I
just
agree.
being very diligent about it.
And I think when we talk about lifestyle change too, it's not like we're like, oh, upend your whole life and try to put 10 new practices into place all at once. Like to me, I always start even well, and it has to do with what you're talking about, what are we digesting, but curiosity. Like if you can put a pause, this is my favorite life hack of all things. If you can put a pause between everything, between before you take anything in, you eat anything or you move your body and you just settle into your own space. I know for you, you'll sometimes, even for me, if I'm kind of all my energy's all over the place, you're like, Stace, just take 3 deep breaths for me right
Mhm.
now. Just stop right now and just take that breath and come back into your body. And I think sometimes we don't even realize, I know I don't even realize I'm holding my breath. So that curiosity, that embodiment, being able to come in. And I think to your point, and I know we mentioned it in episode 2, it's like, how do you want to feel? What do you want? What's the vision for yourself? And to me, I always ask myself, I was like, I want to move freely throughout my day. I want to have plenty of energy. I want to be able to give to the people that I love. And when you start to get clearer about that, that kind of sets in motion so much of like, do I choose this? Because again, in this kind of lifestyle choice or lifestyle practice, it's about choice, not I have to. I have to eat 5 servings of broccoli today or whatever. I get to choose what is best for me in this moment. And that feels very peaceful to me and very much like freedom versus being told and being on some kind of script that's kind of outside of my own intuitive knowing.
Yeah, and I think also it doesn't have to look a certain way. So for example, everybody that knows me knows that I'm a very busy person, I'm a very fast moving person. And I love that. I love moving fast and I love doing my own thing and I love keeping busy and I love my job and I love all those things about me. But so it's not about like, okay, I have to remove all of these things and I have to be super still. But I am even in that rapid pace, there's a mindfulness and a
Mhm.
grounding to me. So I do meditate every day. You're
Mhm.
right. When I go into that cupboard and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and I'm feeling like I need something to eat and but I'm feeling anxious and I'm seeing those cookies and I'm seeing like I'm not knowing kind of what to do. I stop myself and I'm just like, listen, like, I have to take my three breaths, right? I have to take my 3 breaths, or I have to say a little prayer, or or whatever it is that you do, like, to kind of get yourself grounded. Maybe it's just going outside and taking, like, a loop around your neighborhood if you have time, or maybe it's just, "Hey, I'm gonna go take my shower, and then I'm gonna come back to the closet, and let's rethink this." It's just kind of taking that breath, taking that minute, getting yourself back to a grounded so we're just not mindlessly doing it. We're not mindlessly keep walking by the M&M bowl and pulling it into us.
Mhm.
I'm it's so it's even though we all have busy lives, you can still be mindful within that. You don't
Yes.
have to like it's a more mindfulness way of eating and it's a little bit even in the fast pace, the everyday thing, you can slow it down and within your own self a little bit to be, yeah, to be a little bit more mindful about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you. It kind of goes back to the first series about all these diets, all this information, right? If we're now choosing to really listen to what it is that is best for my body, how do we kind of balance like, taking in information? Because I mean, I do also take information. Now, I guess maybe this would be the answer to my question. I'm curious what you think. If I look at a new book, like I read a book a couple months ago that had some different health information in it. I'm like, oh, I'm curious. I want to see what this presents, right? So I read the book and then I said, okay, what rings true for me? Is there something in here I'd like to experiment with or try? And again, I didn't take everything from the book and say, okay, I have to overhaul my life. But I was like, is there one thing that feels like, ooh, that's interesting? And I like to see how my body reacts to this, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's like eating some pomegranates or something like that, right? Because it's good for heart health. This is something I was reading about. And it's like, let me see how that feels for me. Because I think also, too, there's so much information out there. And again, we're saying, okay, the diet has its own agenda, but then how do you educate yourself if you are wanting to implement that as part of your lifestyle change? I know we didn't
Well, you're
talk
again,
about that yet.
I've said this a couple of times. You look at it as a scientific experiment. So
Mhm,
if you want to add those pomegranates in, and that feels true to you, like you're reading something. Honestly, if you read a book and it was let's say it's I'm going to call it like the Mediterranean diet,
mhm,
and and your intuition is telling you, I want to try this. This is
mhm.
something I want to try. Try it.
Yeah.
I with my clients, I'm like, you want to try it? Try it. And
Mhm,
then you can create that mindfulness within that. So you can say to
mhm,
yourself, does this give me the energy I want? Or do I feel like I'm restricting?
mhm,
Does this give me energy or does it cut
mhm,
my energy? Does this how is like my digestive system? How is my
mhm,
bathrooms? How is like what is
mhm,
this doing? Like how is my skin? How is my hair? How am I sleeping well at night by doing that diet? So you can see it as a sign. And then if like you let's say you do it for a couple of months and you're like, hey, this part worked for me, but this part really didn't. And you can play around with it and you
yeah,
can start to figure out and build your own diet, build your own lifestyle change because you might be just taking pieces from all these different things. It's not like I don't do that. I completely do that. My diet
mhm,
is probably very unique, and I think that it's because I'm unique. It's unique to
mhm,
me, and it's what feels good to me, and the amount of movement that I do with my body, and what do I need, and when do I need to fuel, and when do other people need to fuel. It's such a unique thing, but try whatever feels good to you. I always say try whatever. I don't care what you try. I think everybody should try whatever they instinctively like if you now I just don't believe that everybody's diet should be the same. And if it's extreme, where it's like, I'm starving, I'm going to bed hungry, I'm
mhm.
like, these are two different things. Trying out different tidbits of things or something that you read or something that you feel like is healthy for you, do it. Do
I
it.
love that. And
Yeah.
well, and I love the idea that again, one of the tools is always mindfulness, whether it's I mean, I could say curiosity, but however we word it, and again, in that unique kind of fashion that we all show up to the world, is bringing that awareness to whatever it is, whether we're reading a book and ingesting that, whether we're going to sit down and eat a meal and ingest that. To me, it's to your point, it's across the board. It's in everything that we're doing. We're bringing that type of attention to whatever we're choosing.
Yeah, well, it's easy. So it's hard sometimes we're not aware. Again, we're in a fast-paced world. We're just shoveling in our food. We're going through the drive-through. We're doing this.
Yep.
We aren't aware that we just cooked that meal for our family, but we actually ate a whole meal while we were cooking. Like there's an awareness, and it's like one of the first steps I talk about in when I do my Already Enough program is awareness. Like we spend a whole like hour on awareness. Okay.
Mhm.
However, there are questions that you can ask yourself too, like I like, sometimes, like, who's coming to the table today? Is
Mm,
it angry Kelly? I deserve to eat this big pan of brownies.
mm,
Is it
mm.
is it I'm afraid to eat Kelly? Like, I have to restrict. I'm feeling such guilt because of what I did. Who's is it I mean, is it who gives a shit? Like, who's coming to the table?
Yeah,
Who's there? Who's there today? Is it we all have these different personalities to ourselves, and sometimes we come to the table or wherever we're eating. I always say table because like a dinner table, so to speak. But we come to the table with these different ideas. So you can always ask yourself, well, who's here? And like
I
what's
love
going on?
that.
Like I
I
just
love that.
it's fun. It's an interesting thing to do, and there's a lot of other things like you can delve into, and I'm just gonna talk about this for a very short time because this could be a whole episode, but you can delve into your family of origin and how I know for me, I I have a tendency to eat very rapidly because my mom wanted to clean the plate really quickly, so she would either eat off of my plate or she would pull, like, really quickly, so you had to eat very rapidly. There was a lot of anxiety around the dinner table. It was
Yeah.
a lot of so I have a lot of anxiety around the dinner table. So you can always kind of look to, like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense to me." Like, around my family of origin, there was always a diet, or around my family of origin,
Mhm.
we were not allowed to do this or we were allowed to do this. There's something sometimes that gets in our mind about that too, and we
Yeah.
can always sit back and just say we can even journal about it, like, does that here's my family, like, something is here's a really cool tool to do. You could just and this could take 15 minutes. You could just talk about your family of origin and what it's like, what was like at the dinner table, and
Mhm.
then you could respond with, what do I do that's similar to that, and what do I want to let go of?
Yeah.
And then and so and just doing that simple thing of journaling that could really help you just to be that's what is that? It's bringing that awareness.
Mhm.
By asking myself those questions, by taking that breath,
Mhm.
by it's all about that's all journaling, whatever those are 3 different things that you can do to bring back to that awareness, to bring that mindfulness, to get yourself grounded.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I
those are
love
the
that. Well, and I do something similar. I'll just kinda check in with my like, I'll be like, just emotional check-in.
Mhm,
"Hey, am I feeling what am I feeling right now in this moment?"
mhm.
So that, again, that I get to a place where I'm not trying to fix myself or change it, but I'm absolutely knowing, because when you know that, I mean, it used to be I would ask myself, "Why am I eating this?" Right? If I was grazing in the pantry at night years ago, I'd be like, I think one of my first things that I did that changed, like, was a beginning part of my change was like, what do I really want? Right? And
Mhm.
if I really want whatever it is, I wasn't depriving myself. But so often it was like, oh, I'm bored, right? I'm bored.
Yeah.
I want to be entertained. I want whatever it was.
Yep.
There's so much information there. And again, to me, even if now, if I binge 6 cupcakes tonight, now I probably would be like, "That is so interesting. What the heck is going on with you?" And not
Yeah.
in a mean way, but I would be like, "What's going on, girl? Just tell me. Hey, I wanna know." And it's kind of like, again, there's not the pressure of like, "Oh my god, you messed up," and, "Oh my gosh, now everything's ruined," because you know that this is a choice you're making. Like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. To your point, it's not gonna look the same
Yeah.
every day, but
Yeah.
the commitment to this is there.
And something interesting about, like, when we, um oftentimes when I used to be a binge eater, I think 2 things were going on.
Mhm.
First of all, and a lot of people do this, especially Americans, we're good all day
Oh,
long. We
yep.
restrict, we restrict, we restrict, and then we're sitting down, and then we overeat at dinner. We're sitting there, we're relaxed, we're watching our TV show, and all of a sudden the chips come in. All of a sudden that whatever it is, it's just
Mhm.
kind of we're so but it's 2 things are going on. So, you're restricting all day,
Yep.
which your body at night is gonna say even your body's gonna say, "You're not giving me the minerals and nutrients that I need." So,
Mhm.
like, that's why there's a phenomenon of you can eat the 6 cupcakes, but then still feel hungry. You
Yeah.
can eat a whole large pizza, but still feel hungry. It's
Yep.
because your body, like, your physical body is saying, "You didn't give me what I needed. I need these nutrients, I need these minerals, but you're
Mhm.
still not giving to me. You're giving me a lot of calories, but
Yeah.
you're not giving me what I need." And so it's twofold. Like, when you're eating those, 6 when if you were to binge eat on, like, whatever, however many cupcakes, sometimes you're really hungry.
Yeah.
Like, you just didn't eat like, you're not it's really not about the cupcake or the binge eat. Maybe you just haven't been eating enough because you've been restricting dieting or you've been restricting yourself so much, and you yesterday, you really wanted that chocolate chip cookie at your friend's house, and they all enjoyed their cookie, but you didn't have the cookie, and now all
Mhm.
of a sudden you wind up eating a whole sleeve of Oreos. Like,
Oh,
it's
that's been me so many
yeah,
times in the
me too.
past.
Me too. I'm very
It resonates completely with me, especially in my 20s and my early
Yeah.
30s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very clear understanding of all this because I've done everything. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't there's not very many diets I didn't try. So
Yeah.
and so, yeah, there's just, like, there's a lot of different ways, to approach this lifestyle change, and there's a lot of different tools, but, I just always just like to remind people that, like, um and I think we've given all these tools, and then people can choose what they want and leave the rest, or you can just
Absolutely.
start with something small, like, just taking 3 breaths
Mhm.
before you take a bite of food. I mean, it could be simple something simple as that, but I think that it's just I'm hopeful that this will bring hope to other people who have struggled with food and or are struggling with food and body, that there is a different way. There can be a different way. There is a lot of freedom,
Mhm.
and it's not I don't think it ever becomes perfect. It becomes so 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 much better. It's like getting that monkey off of your back. It can happen, and I'm just telling you, and I said this before, I would have never believed it. I thought I thought I was just gonna live with an eating disorder for the rest of my life. Like, I thought,
Mhm.
"This is how I'm going to be on the planet, and this is gonna be hell for me." And
Yeah.
so being able to heal that and being able to be kind of on the other side of it is just like it's just like the best feeling.
It is. And I love what you said too, because it's a practice. And so it's not that again, there's no like we get to a destination. I think that's a diet too, right? It tries to get you to a
Yeah.
destination. And then you're like, and then what? Right? There's no like it's not a lifestyle practice. It's not a hey, I'm committed. And there are days where it's like I found to your point about being hungry and the deprivation thing, interestingly enough, since I've been diving into this even more, I don't know, closely in the last year with all my other health issues, I noticed that some days I'm not as hungry as right. And then the next day I am hungrier, right? Or a couple of days go by. And the first thought when I take the pause is like, you can't eat that much, right? Like there's something that's like, and then I'm like, well, wait a second, wait. Like I take this step back and I go, wait, let me just, and it's like, oh, well, you know what? You probably are hungry because you haven't eaten as much for whatever, reason or whatever. And again, it doesn't really even matter, but I just allow myself to take that look at it differently than, oh my gosh, you can't have a snack today because whatever rule. It's about breaking the rules to me ultimately, right? Which we've all been.
Well, we've been taught that hunger is the enemy, especially as women.
Yes.
Our but it's so funny because our hunger is our lifeline. It's
Mhm.
what keeps us alive. Hunger is a beautiful thing. We wanna feel hunger,
Yeah.
okay? You wanna feel hunger, but we've been taught, "Take this pill to so you don't feel hungry. Take
Yeah.
this shot so you don't feel hungry."
Yep.
And it's like, "No, no, no, wait a second. My hunger is here to help me. My hunger is to tell me that I need some nutrients." It's your body's way of saying, "You're gonna eat a little bit more today. I'm hungry." And
Yeah.
if you're really listening to that, so you again, we gotta go back to that trust issue. You're not trusting.
Right.
You're not trusting that your body knows what's best for you. It's telling you that you're
No, I never trusted I'm telling you, well, I mean, for
yeah,
20, 30 years, I did not trust until I realized, "Oh my gosh, this isn't a food issue, this is a trust issue." I mean, obviously it
yeah.
plays out with food, but this is a trust issue, and this is my right? That was my work to do, is to really figure out how to do that. And again, it doesn't mean the thought doesn't come up. "What do you mean you wanna eat more today?" Okay, that comes up, and I go, "Yeah, of course I wanna eat more today. I'm
No, I
hungry."
still have thoughts, like, I'll see some new diet on and I'll be like, "Oh." Like, it's funny,
Mhm,
it's always for me, it's always an arm reach away, right? It's
mhm.
always like, oh, and then I laugh at myself. I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like, it's not that the thought doesn't come. It's just
Yeah,
my reaction to it.
yes.
And it's that in that reaction, I'm not mad at myself for having the thought.
Nope.
I instantly forgive myself for having the thought, and I just move on. But it's not that the thought doesn't come. It's not like all of a sudden I'm this angel and this angelic thing, and then my eating disorder has taken like, it's always an arm reach away.
Mm,
I can always choose today to go down that path, but usually when another thing, and I wanna say this because this is a really good one, because I always notice that, like, when my eating disorder is tapping at
mhm,
me or my issues with food, it's trying to my life is trying to get the universe is trying to get my attention. It's like,
mhm,
"Hey, Cal," because it's never about food. It's
mm.
usually something like this. "Hey, you know that fight that you had with your husband that's still really bothering you for 2 weeks ago? You might wanna address that." Or,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know that feeling that you've had about, that conversation you had with your daughter and it's really bothering you, or your boss at work, or whatever that is, or what it's but my eating disorder shows up as that, and it taps
Mhm,
me, and it's like, hello? And I'm like, God, why am I like, but if again, you're getting curious, you're asking yourself those questions. And it's interesting because
yeah.
whenever my food stuff arises, it's always something else. It's not about the food. It's about me. Hey, I need to slow down now. I need to take a break.
Mhm.
I'm working too much, or I'm not spending enough time with my spouse, or um, I haven't talked to my friend in a while and I really miss her. Like, there's always something on the back end of it. It could be even deeper than that, but, like, I'm just giving you examples.
No, it's good, and I because it almost becomes a tell, right? Like, when
Mhm.
it shows up, instead of being scared by it, it's like, of course it's gonna show up because there's something there for us to explore, and that's when, if you give space to things, then you can give the time and attention, and again, you don't have to spend 3 hours
No,
dissecting it,
no,
but
no,
it
no.
becomes so quickly now I can pick up on things. Again, practice, 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 staying committed. And to your point about meditation, because I think, again, spiritual practice for both of us is a
Mhm,
huge component of this. When you are giving to yourself in other capacities,
mhm.
it settles you in a way, at least for me. It doesn't make anything go away or be perfect, but it creates, I don't know, a different energy system in which
Mhm,
to operate from. I
mhm.
will highly tout for the rest of my life meditation because it's so easy to do. You do not have to do it, for 3 hours at a time. You have 3 minutes, you have 5 minutes, plug in a guided or put some music on when you start. Cause it's kind of, again, when I first started and it was quiet, I was sitting there, I was like, this is like, I'd rather listen to nails on a chalkboard at the beginning.
Mhm.
However, now it's like I know when I'm not haven't meditated for a couple of days, I'm off. Like I am like, no, this is important to me. This is part of what I do and how I walk in the world. And without it, I feel way ungrounded. And then I do all sorts of things that I don't
Yeah, and
typically do.
I'm in a constant state of almost meditation because, like, because meditation to me is also just taking those 3 breaths.
Mhm. Yeah.
taking those 3 breaths before you walk into that interview, taking those 3 breaths before you walk into a difficult situation, taking those 3 breaths till you before you talk to your ex-husband about your kids, taking those 3 breaths. It's Now
Yes.
I do it for longer every day because that's what helps me greatly, but you can start off, like you said, with 3 minutes, with 2
Yeah.
minutes. You can just know that taking your deep breath and just sitting in the car and taking those breaths and taking those, that minute or 2 before you walk into a difficult situation or before you walk into that buffet or before you walk into that restaurant. Like it's that's to me that's about a part of mindfulness, that's a part of meditation, that's a part of coming back to your breath, coming back to your own intuition and your own spiritual guidance system, because a diet without a spiritual guidance system is chaos.
Ooh, that's good.
If
I
you
like
don't have that, it's not going to work long term.
And I think one more thing before we close that I also find, and I know we've talked about it before, that we find helpful is this idea of I can have whatever I want. Really, truly, I can. If you really believe that, that has been another practice for me. I didn't always believe it, even though I was saying it to myself at the beginning of learning that and really trusting myself. Like, if you really trust that, like, I can have a brownie if I want a brownie, I want to enjoy, some chocolate, then there's something, the energetic exchange of that with yourself changes in a way to me that when you are allowing and inviting life again and not trying to just manage your way through, there's
Mhm.
something that becomes available to us that to me is like one of the most delightful things on the planet, whether I eat it or I don't. But the truly believing that we can have it and we do not have to punishment and restriction and all of these things, like, what do they say, you cannot mean your way through, right, feeling like that is not, I mean, I guess people try it, I've tried it, but it doesn't sustain anything long term. So
No.
the more you create that loving, compassionate, allowing space, and again, maybe it's just a little bit. You don't believe that at first. You just think it's possible for me to believe this. Maybe I don't believe it yet, but maybe I'm open to the possibility that I could sit in a room with my favorite foods and be in a really good place with them.
I think it's something that, I think it's something that's super important for at the beginning of if you're starting a lifestyle change. I think something that's really, really important, and I had to have it, and it was important because I went through a treatment center and I worked with a counselor, and I've worked with many counselors, and, I I think it's important that you have some sort of coach or you have some sort of therapist.
Yeah.
I do. Both you and I do that. So if
Yes.
anyone's listening and they want to hire us to help them, that's what we're here on the planet for. And I I mean, sign me up for whoever needs that because I feel like it's well, we don't do anything on our own really, do we? Like we
No.
always need some sort of support. We always
And
need
why not? And why not make it to me, it's way more fun. Anytime
Yeah.
you work with the right person.
And then you can talk
Yeah.
about the cupcakes, you can talk
Yes.
about these tools, you can talk
Yes.
to somebody, you can throw things at, "Hey, I feel like, I was sitting there and this issue with food came out, that tapping, right? Like, but let's talk it out with somebody." And
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, "Well, I have a spouse and I have a best friend." Sometimes that's never gonna work, let's just be honest.
No.
Because they're too emotionally attached to you, and they don't
Exactly.
need to listen to that. Your spouse doesn't need to have that thrown up on them.
Yeah.
Your best friend doesn't need to have that always, and they can't carry that for you.
No.
You should
And
have
they're
some
gonna bring their own version of whatever they
Yes,
think you should do
or
to
no,
it,
you
which
can do
is
that because
different.
of their own stuff. Like, "Oh, you can eat
Exactly.
the whole pizza because I ate one last night." You're like, no." But
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think,
It's
we're
nice to
here.
have your own space
Here.
and your own container that's safe to
Yeah,
explore.
I love having I think it's important to have that support. I have in place around me a lot of support in different areas in my life. And I think it's important to have that, especially in the beginning when you're trying to work on some of these tools.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. This has been amazing, and we are going to cap it off with part 4, which is all the Q&A. We've already gotten a bunch of questions in that we're going to speak to. If you have a question about this particular episode or anything that we've talked about, or maybe something related that we haven't even spoken to, but you want to hear our perspective on, please send us a message, because we will be speaking directly to those about whatever that is that you most want to know. So you have a embarrassing question or something that you think, whatever it is, put it out there. We would love to speak to it.
Bye.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get all the delicious details and links we've mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. If you'd like to chat about this episode or learn more about how to work with me, come visit me in my private Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment, or check out my website, staceyandon.com, where you can find out more about my Leap of Faith coaching, my Map Makers group program, and the School of Intuitive Magic. Plus a special shout out for all the production and editing of this show by Richard Wilmore. That's it for now, love. Here's to living a life enchanted. See you soon.
All information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Those seeking personal medical advice should consult with a licensed physician and always seek the advice of your doctor or other qualified health provider regarding a medical condition.